Hi, I'm Lauren from LSP Actions and welcome to this tutorial using our torn paper shoot through overlays. We're going to do something super fun in this one. Really good if you've got pets or a crazy photo of kids in your studio. We're going to do something like this, where you see the little guys kind of bursting through the paper. So let's dive in. We're just going to dive in straight away with the actions and everything already set up. If this is the first tutorial you're watching, I do recommend watching tutorial number 1, where we go through exactly how to set up and get started, especially if you're a beginner. So let's dive in. Using the actions, I'm going to use the actions for this rather than doing it by hand. I'm going to pick choose the overlay plus the layers, and I'm going to locate the right one on our computer. Colour really doesn't matter. This is the pink background, so pink is absolutely fine. But we can, we can change the colour as you've seen in the other tutorials, and I'll be tweaking the colour a bit in this one to really match that background. I like colour blocking for matching, but really, you might want to choose something completely opposite. What I'm going to do at this stage, as we're placing the heart, is just take the opacity down a little bit on the layers panel so we can see our positioning. I want it to look like, he's kind of burst through at the neck. So maybe about there, and hit OK. Take that opacity up a little bit. In fact, I'm going to use Control or Command T just to make this a bit longer and a little larger. Okay, that's good. Bring the opacity back up. Now you can see we do have some layers set up for us to get started on, but I'm going to go in for masking straight away. As we've done in the previous tutorials, I'm going to use select and mask in Photoshop for this one, in Photoshop Creative Cloud. The other tutorials, you can see how you can also mask manually by hand if you're on an old version of Photoshop or Elements. I'm going to click the background. I'm going to go straight for Select and Subject and see if Photoshop can do a good enough job of that. If not, we can go manually, but I think that's a pretty good selection. If you hold down Alt and click on the eye icon, you can isolate that layer so you can really look at your selection. Now you can see in this one, it's actually got a shallow focus, it's a shallow depth of field. So I'm going to come into Select and Mask. I'm going to use the Refine Edged brush, and a little larger, and I'm just going to come around the edge so that the selection is picking up this fluffiness a little better. It won't be perfect, but we can alter this with a little bit of extra masking as well. I do recommend zooming in at times when you're doing this kind of thing, just to make sure it's appropriate and suitable for the masking, or if you need to change it more. I'm going to hit OK, and we've got a little bit of a better mask. So now I can turn our other layers back on. I'm going to click on the layer mask of the heart with a brush set to black, because I want to hide the heart to show our subject underneath. So I'm just going to start painting now, and you can see we are revealing our subject. Now, one of the things with this particular image is it is shot with a shallow depth of field, and because of that, it means that our heart is in focus where it should actually be a little blurred. So I'm going to show you how to blur that as well, just to match your image. Any areas you don't want to show, you can paint over with a white brush to reveal the heart again. We're basically painting the heart away where we don't want it to show, and painting it on where we do want it to show. Does that make sense? Layer masks are like Lotto scratch cards. Control or Command D. Now I'm going to click on the actual heart layer itself, and I'm going to click on, oh, just realised I had a slightly older version of the actions loaded in. I'm going to click on Blur Paper. Make sure you selected the heart, nothing else. The heart, so actually click on the layer, not the mask. Click on the layer thumbnail itself with the heart on it. Hit Blur. You're going to get a Gaussian blur box pop up. So I can just play with this, and you can see it's blurring in. My computer is being incredibly slow today. I've just blurred it a little because I want this to kind of match the shallow depth of field we've got going on here around the ears, and hit OK. And this is going to create a smart filter box for you. What I'm going to do with a black brush, I'm just going to get a soft black brush, and I'm going to paint this off some of the areas just to mimic a depth of field. You don't have to do this, but I think it can really help with the realism of your image. A little attention to details. There we go. We can also refine the selection a little more, because you can see there is a halo, and at this point you might want to refine the selection in a bit. But what I'm going to do is actually adapt the heart a little more to the tones of our image. So it's up to you what you would like to do in this case. So I'm going to first click on lighten, turn this on, and you can already see that's completely adapted, although it is still a little dark and contrasty in these areas, but we don't really need to edit that, especially at the top. On the actions, you see this lighten is a layer that's already been created with the Choose the Overlay plus Layers for you, a great starting point. But you can also click on your overlay, your heart, or your hole in the paper. I'm going to add lift the paper now. This is going to add a complete lightness. I'm going to grab a really big brush set to black because I don't really want this around the top. I don't really need it there. And on the actual lighten, I'm just going to take that off because we don't need it quite so contrasty. On the colour change, I'm going to turn that on, double click, and just sample an area of our original background. You can see it's kind of gone a little bit of grey tone, so you can then manually tweak this around to work. And you can see now we have this super fun portrait. We've gone from this to this, super fun for your client. On paint shadows, I'm going to click on paint shadows with a white brush. So I'm going to grab a white brush. This is going to paint some shadowing onto our heart or ripped paper. So I'm just going to dab this around under the subject, paying attention to the direction of the light, just so we can get even more of a realistic kind of look here. The layer down the bottom, paint shadows onto your subject. I'm also going to use a little bit of that, just to make this super realistic. So now you can see we have this obviously this box around our subject here and the background. So at this stage you can choose how you'd want to crop this in. I'm going to click the crop tool. It's already set on a 5:7, which I think is quite good for these. It really depends on the ratio of your image. Let's give a little more room around our subject and hit OK. And you can see obviously we have a little bit across the top and the bottom that wasn't filled in. So at this point I recommend making a new merge layer. You can click on the action I've designed for you to do this, or you can do it yourself. Click on the thumbnail. As you can see here, this is a completely merged image. I'm going to grab the marquee tool and I'm just going to go highlight these areas. You can use generative fill, you can clone. My personal favourite is edit, fill, choose content aware and hit OK, especially for a plain background like this. If you have more detail in the background, you may want to use generative fill, cloning or patching, but that's done a really great job. So we've gone from this guy to this. So I do hope you enjoyed playing with these. Watch the other video tutorials for more techniques you can use to get these to blend beautifully with your images. I'd love to see what you do. Please post them in the LSP Actions Facebook group. I'd love to see. I'm Lauren. Thanks for watching.